which is to say, what is the main division in America between the two political parties? And it was asked in the context of someone who was, I'm not even sure legal or illegal, to be honest, but someone who wanted to become an American. And they were asking, what is the real difference from our point of view, and our, in this case, included me, how do the two parties differ as you see it? Someone who's been in America, someone who sort of looks at the political system, what's the difference? And it was very hard for me to say because here's not somebody to whom I could refer to the Constitution or Publius or the Federalist Papers or any of that. Here's someone who wanted me to talk on a different level completely. And so I answered this way. I said, look, in America, as I understand it, we have two parties, two sides. One I'm going to call the party of the ladder, and the other I'm going to call the party of the rope. The party of the ladder is a party that believes that America is represented, metaphorically, by a ladder of opportunity, and that the government has a role, and the role is to hold the ladder. And hold the ladder here means to protect our constitutional rights. It's our job to climb. And how high we get, how far we advance in life, is going to largely depend on how we climb. Not exclusively on us. It's going to depend in part on our industry, our creativity, our intelligence, but it's also going to depend on chance. But your fate, if you will, on the ladder is largely, not entirely, but largely up to you. And this is the party of the ladder. I actually agree with this philosophy. The other party I'm going to call the party of the rope. And the party of the rope operates somewhat differently. It's more like this. You have a building, and it's a tall building, and you have a group of people on top of the building, and they're the ones looking down at all the poor immigrants down there. And the people on top of the building say, hey guys, we really don't believe in the ladder. In fact, we think the ladder is an illusion. There are no ladders really in America when you look hard enough. However, do not despair, because we are going to be letting down a rope. Your job, poor creature, hang on to the rope. Do nothing else. We will pull you up. Now, when I first heard about this or thought about things this way, I thought to myself, wow, the rope is far more attractive than the ladder. Why? Because in a ladder, you actually have to climb. In the rope, you basically do nothing except hold on. But it also occurred to me that with the rope, you are dependent on the people who are holding the rope. If they let go, down you go. And not only that, but if you actually do a little bit of empirical checking and you really pay attention at what's happening, not just in our inner cities, but in the Latino barrios of America and the Native American reservations, you notice something remarkable. That the people who are being pulled up by the rope never seem to get to the top of the building. They are pulled up, and then the people on top hold, suspending you in midair, in which you're a long distance back from the ground, too far to jump, and yet your advancement appears to be halted. And it crosses your mind that maybe the people on the top of the building have no intention of pulling me up. Because if they were to pull me up, I would become one of them, I would dust myself off and walk off, and that's not what they need. They've got me right where they want me. And now we have to ask the question, what are they doing this for? What is the point of holding people in this suspended abeyance? And the answer, of course, is that what you want out of them is the one thing that they have the power to give you. Poor though they are, lacking prospects though they are, lacking food perhaps though they may be, or health care, they do have one thing that costs them nothing, that is to you everything, and that is their vote. And so as long as you can consolidate their votes, you've got them where you want them. So in my view, not only is this the ideological fork in America, but you can actually see two types of immigrants who respond to the incentives that are offered on both sides of the aisle. There's one type of immigrant who says, I'm the immigrant of the ladder. I don't actually want ropes. I'll pull myself up. Just hold the ladder. Just protect my rights. And I am counting on America to offer the freedom, the opportunity for me to make my way. And if I fall flat on my face, that will actually be my doing. And there's another type of immigrant who goes, wow, we have things kind of rough over here. I didn't even know there was a country where all I've got to do is hold on to a rope. They're telling me I don't have to work. In fact, they would rather I not. Why? Because then my dependency on them is greater and my vote for them more reliable. And this is a bargain that I'm actually willing to make. What does my vote cost me? Nothing. And so if I can get a set of meager provisions of food and housing and health care, it may not actually be a very good life, but it's a life nonetheless. And it's perhaps a better life than I have here. So I'm going to go for it. And so what you have here is not only an ideology on this side that, if you will, is pulling, but you also have immigrants of two different types who are pushing, and which ideology prevails is going to determine what kind of immigrants we get in America. Are we going to get immigrants of the ladder, or are we going to get immigrants of the rope? Now, I want to say a word. I'm almost out of time. I want to leave time for questions. Just going to say a word about the Democratic Party. And this is motivated by the notion that progressive historiography, which is mostly what I would say we all learn, what I learned, suppresses the complicity of the Democratic Party in the great crimes of American politics. It is hardly an exaggeration to say that most of the things for which Democrats indict America, or Republicans, or the white man, or even the South, were not done by America, or the white man, or even the South, but were actually primarily driven by the Democratic Party itself. It's the accuser who is actually guilty of the crime. It's the guy who poisoned the waters who's pretending to show up as the water commissioner. Now, to prove this would actually take more than I can possibly do here, but I'm just going to sum up by saying that the Democratic Party is, without dispute, in this country's history, the party that promoted slavery, segregation, Jim Crow, racial terrorism, the Ku Klux Klan, and it was the main party in opposition to the civil rights laws of the 1960s. I have documented this in rather excruciating detail, but I want to leave you with just a single tidbit that to me illustrates the degree to which even those of us in this room, educated, smart, having gone to the best schools and are here at one of the best schools, but nevertheless don't know things because they're not in our textbooks and we're not told them. So in 1860, the year before the Civil War, I would point to the Democratic Party and what its complicity in slavery, by the way, Democrats North and South. And inevitably on campus, someone would say to me, "But Dinesh, you've got to realize that this is a very simplistic argument. You're pointing your finger in one direction. Surely there's a lot of blame to go around." And this is the kind of thing that I would say my career exists to crush, which is the attempt ultimately to evade the issue by backing up and throwing, if you will, a squid-like cloud of obfuscation over the whole matter. There's plenty of blame to go around. Actually, no. And the proof of it is that in 1860, the year before the Civil War, no Republican owned a slave. I pause. Not no Republican leader owned a slave. It's my contention that no Republican in the United States owned a slave. And that means that all the slaves in the entire country, 4 million of them at the time, were owned by Democrats. Now, That's hate speech if you're looking for it. But it's not just hate speech, it's a scientific statement in the sense that it opens itself to what Popper calls refutability. Refutability. All you have to do is give me the names of 3 Republicans who owned slaves, and I would have to take it back. But to this date, 3 years after I first made this claim, not a single valid counterexample has surfaced. And what does that tell you? That tells you that there's not plenty of blame to go around, that slavery was one-sidedly promoted by one party and opposed by the other party. Do you know that every segregation law in the South, from the beginning to the end, was passed by a Democratic legislature, signed by a Democratic governor, and put into effect by Democratic officials, and that there's not a single exception to that rule? And yet, these facts that I'm telling you now do not appear, to my knowledge, in a single textbook. They do not appear on the History Channel or on NPR. They're not in Wikipedia if you type it in there. And why not? They're true, but they have been suppressed by progressive historiography. What I'm trying to say is that history, somebody made it. And the somebodies who made it found inconvenient facts that they thought it better not to say or not to emphasize. And part of my education, if you will, as an immigrant, has been to open my eyes to all of this and to see, as with Frost, the repressed truth that goes unsaid that is perhaps more important than what is said on the surface.